Hello, everyone. I hope that you're doing well today. I just want to take this opportunity to share a few thoughts from a lesson I gave today with the Dale City Church of Christ. The lesson is from Isaiah chapter 32, where God uses this interesting expression that He would pour out His Spirit on His people. Now, in that chapter, in Isaiah chapter 32, there's a pattern that I think is important for us to appreciate how God would communicate to the people through the prophets. And this pattern is that God would point out the sin of the people, and then He would indicate that they would experience judgment, punishment because of that sin. And then thirdly, He would speak about a time of restoration and blessing after the people return to Him. And in this particular case, that's so important because what God does is He uses these futuristic terms to talk about that blessing and restoration. He's affirming His covenant with His people because as they experience instability and disruption, they many times would have a crisis of faith. And God wanted them to know that even though they're experiencing instability, that they had to direct their hearts toward Him so that they would receive the blessings that He would soon bring when He pours out His Spirit on them. Now think about this expression, God pouring out His Spirit. This expression, first of all, indicates that God is going to give abundant blessing. He's pouring out His Spirit, the scripture says. And then when He talks about His Spirit in the Old Testament, the Spirit is always used to empower the people of God to accomplish the purpose of God. And so God is saying that He's getting ready to bless His people, and they need to be ready to be blessed and start to do His will again. And so in our lives, we need to be aware and open our eyes to the places where God is pouring out His Spirit. But we also need to tune our hearts so that we can indeed be empowered by God. And Isaiah chapter 32 verse 16 tells us how, when it says that righteousness and justice would dwell in these dry and arid places. Now, when the scripture talks about righteousness and justice, these are similar but related terms. Righteousness refers to the standard that we ought to live by, but justice speaks about the active steps that we take to restore God's standard in our lives and in our relationships when it is lacking. And so God was saying to the people that even though they experienced instability, and it was because of their own sin, they now needed to be intentional about directing and shaping their hearts so that He could use them. I believe that when we look in our world, God is still pouring out His Spirit, but we need to be intentional about seeing what He's doing and also being ready to receive the empowering of His Spirit so that we could do His will in this world.